Welcome to another exciting episode of the Contractor Business Builder podcast. Today, we have the honor of having Kurt Hegetschweiler, founder of Builders Coach. Kurt was one of the first to specialize in coaching builders in Australia. Now, 20 plus years later, he's helped hundreds of builders reach the elusive seven-figure club, and he's not stopping there. In this episode, we dive deep into what it really takes to get your business running like a machine and why becoming $1 million builder is about who you become, not just what you earn. How you doing today, Kurt?
I'm very good. Thanks, Derek. Thanks for having me, man. Looking forward to the conversation.
Definitely, decades wealth of experience helping builders grow and scale and be profitable at the end of the day. So can you give us a little bit of your background and the work that you do with builders?
Yeah, sure. So my sort of Batman origin story. I've had a renovations business, remodeling business myself here in Sydney. I've also launched a national building franchise as well. Absolutely love learning. Was always coaching, started back in 2004. And when I initially started as a business coach, I worked, generically with a few other builders, but my dad was a tradesman, so it resonated towards trades and builders in particular. I just at some point decided this is what I want to do, get a real buzz out of helping people go through a positive transformation and optimize profit, cash flow, workflow. So our sort of point of difference in the market is really about optimization and peak performance, which is where the leadership and mindset comes into play. And yeah, as we both know, we're talking about before, the industry needs a lot of help. There's a lot of people suffering unnecessarily, like financially, with profit and cash flow. And really, it's exciting times. There's never been a better time to be in business. There's never been better sharing of information. The fact that you and I are having this conversation, and there's a lot of overlap in terms of our values and how we see, areas for improvement and, first principles thinking, strategies, process, all that sort of thing. So it's a case of spreading the word and the impact as much as possible to help more builders, take control.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's more information, tools, opportunities more now than ever for sure to really build an amazing business. That's not to say it's easy, but there is help and a lot of these resources available. So for you, what does it mean to you, or what does it take to build, a seven-figure contracting business? What do you see?
Yeah, so the seven figure club or $1 million builder, which by the way, title of my book, just shameless plug. This is my second
Yeah.
best-selling book. Yeah, $1 Million Builder 2.0. It's available
Mhm.
everywhere, Spotify, Audible, paperback copy, Kindle, whatever, your preference is. But
Yep.
I've had some young guys say to me, I've got a guy I'm working with now who's it's this little inside joke with us where he came on a call like this with me and he said, "Hey, nice clickbait," because you jump online these days, there's all $1 million this, $1 million that, but it
Mhm.
actually happened organically. It's $1 million net profit that one of our builders achieved. So we work with residential builders, right? Custom home renovation builders between sort of 2 and 10 mil turnover. You get got outliers, but that's sort of 80-90% of our builders. And the sweet spot for the $1 million net profit. And again, this has happened. It's coaching, and then a guy achieved that result. And it's, as you'd know, if you get your gross margin right without going down the rabbit hole of the specifics, but we work on a 25% gross margin. So that's the profit, the gross profit on a job. You still got to pay your overheads. If that's 25%, turnover 6 million, say for the year, 25% of 6 mil is 1.5 million gross profit. If you can cover your overheads with 500,000, including wages to the owner, then you've got a seven-figure or $1 million net profit before tax, right? And in the Western world, if you're making anywhere near that sort of profit, you've got a tax problem. So you can either pay the tax, like if you trust the government's going to spend it wisely and you're a big fan, or you can, and this is the best business model we've seen, you can buy some real estate, do some fixer uppers, buy and hold, ideally find a specialty or niche within that's the real estate space. And that's where you can create sort of generational wealth. But that's where the $1 million builder sort of concept came from, happened organically. And then we sort of found that sweet spot of the 6 mil. So a lot of guys that come to me now come to me wanting to get into the seven-figure club, or maybe just even $500,000 net profit, and then make that sustainable because they can have a boutique business and then, do one buy and hold a year for 10 years, and then that's it, that's
Mhm.
set. So
Yep.
that's essentially
Yeah.
that's where the title came from. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, definitely something to aspire to. And I think a lot of business owners, contractors, when they get started, that is sort of the goal, right? Like to reach somewhere in that $1 million profit range. And a lot of them can go off the tracks really easily. And sometimes I guess the temptation is to just grow revenue and as many jobs as you can. And you end up, if your margins aren't correct or your business isn't in a good place, you end up scaling and realizing you just increased the amount of mess and problems you had instead of solving them. So what do you see as like signs or signals that someone is ready to kind of scale their business? Let's say they're doing that around, 2 million in revenue per year, and they see this, I've got to get up to, 6 to 8 in order to really see that profitability. But what do they need to get in place first, or when do they know if they're ready to really start wrapping things up?
Yeah, sure. So there's a few things to unpack there. So first up, I'd have to say most builders don't strive to net $1 million. Like when I bring it up, some of them, they think it's BS or marketing or clickbait. And for many, it seems like a pipe dream because they've never really made much profit. And around 90% of businesses, not just in our industry, in any industry, don't make net profit, right? They make maybe a good wage, and most entrepreneurs are unemployable, right? That's why we work for ourselves. I personally would rather live under a bridge than work for someone else, right? So I think that's the case. I heard recently that I think it's less than 4% of people on the planet have ADHD. Around 50% of business owners, especially in our industry, are ADHD. Very impulsive and quick for decision making, all that sort of thing. But yeah, so most don't really think that's possible. And that's okay. Like, and mindset's another whole conversation. So I'll just start with that. But then to answer your question, what does it take? If they're turning over 2 mil, most guys like, again, I'll try to keep this answer short and on point. We got to chase the margin, then the revenue. Okay. That's the crucial thing is get the margin first. So identify what market, what type of work, what niche is there in your location where there's going to be an opportunity for bigger margin. And then, position yourself as that builder, be the specialist cardiologist, not the GP. And then within that, identify an ideal client persona as well, because the type of client you work with is really important. So that's a good starting point to get the margin up above at least 20%, ideally 25% margin, and then scale from there. Then scale the volume of work slowly. The overhead should always be around 10% of turnover. So 2 mil, your overheads or running costs, there's the accountants use different terminology for the same thing. And that's just your expenses that you can't allocate to a job. So like your office rent, marketing, business coaching, printing, whatever it is, all that office admin wages. What most guys don't realize is that their site-related labor, the carpentry, the labor, and very importantly, and this is if someone hasn't been listening, they need to listen to this. This is a critical distinction, right? Like the small hinges that swing big doors. This is one of them. Supervision and project management need to be costed in as a cost of sale, like bricks, lumber, steel sort of thing. So that's the thing I see most guys don't do. So if they're not doing that, they'll have a margin. They'll go, yeah, my margin's already 25, or I've got 30% margins, but that's not a true margin because they're not costing in things accurately. And then, beyond that, you need an accurate gross margin to calculate your break-even point, because the break-even point equation is overhead divided by gross margin. So you need to know where you're breaking even at, what volume of work at what gross margin to cover overheads. Beyond that point, the gross becomes net. And then, so if you can find the margin and hold 25 and then you can price it, hold it on delivery of the work. As the volume of work goes up and you approach 5 or 6 mil, there's a hockey stick effect with the net profit. So we work on a 25, 10, 15. And I'll talk about it in the book again, shameless plug. This is a great resource for all the details. Mm-hmm. And look, the great thing about the numbers, and you'd attest to this, Derek, we live in a world where there's just so much bait and switch and people talking bullshit. And the thing that really gets under my skin is the people online that are like, hey, you can do this. It's easy. It's quick and easy. Like there is no shortcut to making money. There's no quick and easy way to get fit and healthy, right? Like you're going to have to do the cardio. You're going to have to do the weight training. You're going to have to say no to sugar. Like there's no take a pill and everything's going to be fine. All right. Same with your business. So you need to do the work. You need to apply yourself. But if you get the numbers right, the maths doesn't lie. It's very black and white. So those, 25 gross margin, 10% overheads to turnover, 15% net. you look after the first two, take care of the third one. And yeah, you gotta follow the process consistently. And again, we help guys implement best practice process in the right sequence. There's another little distinction, because when you look at all the processes that are involved in a building company, and you'd know like the pre-construction phase is the most important, right? Everything at the planning, the decision making, the selections, the costings, the positioning of the clients and the subcontractors. You do that exceptionally well with good quality documentation, then the build process is smooth and more efficient and more profitable. But it's implementing those processes from first inquiry all the way through to after maintenance. And again, there's a particular sequence for putting those in place quickly and well. And then overlay that with a dream team, ideally. And in order to build a dream team, you need leadership that warrants that. Or always deserving of building quality leaders underneath you. And that's where the leadership and mindset part comes into play. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure on the same page there, where you need to get your numbers right and your margins in the right place before you start to grow your business, because it's not, you're just going to compound the effects. If you're already, thin on numbers or wondering where the money is and it's not in your bank account, and you start to grow, you're not going to magically get more money out of nowhere if your margins are low. You need to be able to sell jobs at a high enough value and margins in order to have that room for growth, definitely. And as far as like the mindsets, you mentioned leadership, getting your dream team in place. Can you speak to that as far as what mindsets, or you mentioned some key concepts already, but what sort of key things do people need to understand if they're going to take this on?
Well, that's a great question, man, because so everyone's different, like especially as it relates to sort of mindset. We all have different upbringing, different DNA. You get nature and nurture. 50% of our, attributes could be from from our DNA, whether you're extroverted or introverted or more of a numbers person or people person or whatever it is. So there's that component to it. So a big part of leadership is, above all, know yourself, and then ideally, play to your strength, employ your weaknesses. But I just want to go back to the numbers. One of the things that, just before we jump into the leadership side, which I know you want to talk about, but I've never had a builder come to me with accurate numbers, right? So getting that right is so freaking important. It is just unbelievably important. And that's a day one conversation with all our clients, right? Like most builders out there and anyone listening, like you tell me whether you have to call your bookkeeper or your accountant to collate the numbers to then tell you how you've done financially. If that's the case, like you don't want to run a business that way. You don't want to live your life that way, right? You should be able to, within seconds, access accurate numbers that tell you exactly how you're tracking. So you can, check in on those three guiding lights, if you like, the 25, 10, 15. So that's something that we set up quickly and well. And yes, you still need to have an accountant and you need a bookkeeper and you need to do work. And there's complex, financial reviews, assessments and algorithms and everything that you can look at, which is great. But you need to have accurate controls. Just like when you're driving a car, right? Like you need to be able to, when you look at the gas tank, if it says you got half a tank of fuel, you don't want it to have almost empty, or the rev counter, speedometer saying you're traveling at a certain speed, but you're not, so your gauges need to work. So that's really, really important. So back to the mindset question. So everyone's different. Everyone has at its core, we all have a different self-image or belief system, all right? And you will never outperform your self-image. So there's a great book that I'd recommend everyone gets, and you tell me if you, I don't know if we spoke about this the last time we had a conversation, but Psycho-Cybernetics, Maxwell Maltz. So 30 million copies of that book were sold. It was written in 1960, like years ago, decades ago. But every peak performance, person, whether it's sport or in any other field, has either read that book or applies the principles in there. The great thing about Psycho-Cybernetics, it gives you a process and a structure for how to expand your self-image, which is a bit like a thermostat, right? And it's important to understand that we have a self-image for every area of our life, like how you play golf, how you tell jokes, how you are as a father, a husband, with marketing, with money. And again, if you have a small self-image, then you'll always default back to it. And this is why people self-sabotage. You get that term bandied around. But so the question is, how do you measure it? Like you can't put a machine. I can't put a machine on you and go, oh, so your self-image for money is it's at a healthy 8 out of 10. But if you think of athletes, you think of a Michael Jordan, like his self-image around his ability, like it's right on or beyond their capability. And it's important to understand as well that the upper end of human potential is untested, right? If you speak to psychologists, right? And someone like a Michael Jordan, no, what's his name? Jordan Peterson talks about that, right? Mm-hmm. So if we're looking at money, so how do you measure it? So if we're looking at money, a good way to assess where your money mindset will be is look back at your family, look at your parents. So what was their money mindset? Did they have an abundance mindset or scarcity? Were they, money's the root of all evil? Maybe had a religious upbringing, and so if that's the case, it's naive to think that you weren't impacted by your environment, because our environments do shape us. And again, it's 50 nature nurture. So you want to expand that self-image. Marketing's an area I see a lot of builders, especially older guys, they see it as self-promotion, that they sort of hold back a bit. They don't want to optimize their marketing processes and expand their reach. And a quick and easy mindset shift around that is you're not trying to sell yourself, because sales has got a dirty word. It's got a dirty name. Okay, and it is a dirty word for a lot of people because they've had people trying to sell them things that they don't need. If someone's trying to sell you a refrigerator and you don't need one, it's irritating, right? So if you're trying to marketing is just selling in advance, and you don't like sales, it's going to make it difficult for you to perform well, because you've got that image around it that's a negative one, right? So the way to flip the script is just see yourself as a solution provider. Like if you do renovations and extensions, you're providing that solution. All right. You're not trying to sell it to anyone. You're just letting people know, hey, this is what we do. We do it well. We've got a portfolio of work, and be like a lighthouse that just puts out that signal. It's the same with us, right? Like I help builders make more money, take control of their business. And I know we're going to get into it. The real reward is who you become, right? It's the leadership, skills and attributes that you develop, and the character above all, that you develop in the pursuit of taking control of your business and optimizing your profit, right? That's the real reward. And why? Well, at some point we're going to die, right? If you look at Marcus Aurelius and those guys, 2000, 4,000, I don't know how many thousand years ago, they were talking about it. It's just, we're here for a short time and then you're gone. You can't take your properties and your money with you. You take your memories. You could leave a legacy, or people will remember you for the impact you had, the person you were. And even if you lose all your money and your wealth like that, which can happen, no one can take your character away and the things that you learn. And when you internalize those, like the freedom that you get from that is phenomenal. So I always maintain, I can't remember who said this, but that you want to enjoy life, right? Enjoy a rich life. Get yourself and the money out of the way. So make enough money so money's not a problem, because money it can be torturous if you don't have it, right? Nothing messes with your head like cash flow problems. But most of us live in a self-imposed prison because of the limiting beliefs and self-image that we have, and then create stories around and have all these anchors, whether it's from upbringing or who knows what else. I'm a bit of an armchair psychologist, but it's about cutting those free, get out of your own way, and make some money and enjoy freedom.
Wonderful. Yeah, thanks for unpacking that. Lots of gold nuggets in there for sure on mindset and just how much of it is your maybe limiting beliefs or the way that you view yourself essentially in these different roles, or essentially you continue to do things the way you've always done, or think this the way you've always thought. You're going to continue to get the same results and be in the same place essentially that you are. So it's not an easy thing sometimes, especially when they're ingrained, like you mentioned, from childhood and things like that. But that is some of the hard work that needs to get done sometimes, is the internal work and realizing it, pinpointing it. Just to rewind to the bookkeeping and accounting and knowing your numbers and financials, right on point there for sure. That's like first call conversation. What are your do you have access to your books? Are your books in order? Are they up to date? That kind of thing. If you're out there and listening to this, do yourself a favor, talk to your bookkeeper, accountant, whoever you need to. You should definitely have access to your books any time of day, 24/7, and you should be able to run your reports to know exactly where your financials are at, and they should make sense to you.
Shouldn't have to call them.
Yeah, because you cannot run a successful business without understanding those things. It's just most of the business decisions you're going to make stem from knowing where your numbers are at for sure. So you talked about margins. You got to make healthy margins, getting to that elusive 1 million profit mark there. You also mentioned if you make $1 million, you're going to pay a lot of that back into taxes. So what do you suggest builders do with the profits that they make, and how do they reach that $1 million builder mark?
Great question. So, first of all, everything I say after this, not financial advice, right? I'm just, but yeah,
Definitely. Yeah.
disclaimer for
Mm.
any of the lawyers on the call. But short answer, profit first. You want to profit first, man. So a day one conversation with our clients, and by the way, I do. Yeah, we have one-on-one coaching. We do have communities and group coaching, and I expand my reach through my book, but I'm a big believer in one-on-one interaction because of the mindset and leadership component while you're implementing best practice process. But day one, it's numbers. We've got to get clear on the numbers. We've got to set up accurate financial controls and then cost tracking to move forward in line with the 25, 10, 15. But so what was your question again? It was, yes.
Essentially,
What
what to
do
do
you
with the
do with the
profits
profit?
of the
Yeah, what
business?
do you do with the
Yeah.
profit? So once we've got the financial controls, cost tracking, and then we're setting the margins up. So, and then increasing the volume. So increasing the margin and the volume. So you're sort of double dipping. On the first thing on day one is a profit first conversation. So there's books written on profit first. Mike Mikilowicz, I think he is. I haven't even read the book. I just understand the concept. It's so simple. I explain it in under 60 seconds, right? And this is the
Beauty
most
of it. Yeah.
powerful thing. The most
Hmm.
powerful thing I've learned in wealth creation, right? Like in my 20s, I could not save a dollar. I'm too impulsive, right? And there's a lot of people like that. And a lot of people, that are employees, they get an increase or a new job and they spend everything that they earn, right? They just increase they improve their lifestyle. So most people have income, whether it's a business or a job, and then they minus expenses. And then with what's left, if there's anything, they take that and they save it, maybe a little bit of cash. They buy some shares, crypto, Bitcoin, which I'd recommend. I'd recommend it, not financial advice, but just, hey, $50 a
Hmm.
week. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then leave it till 2033. Just see what happens. And then real estate. And then, you can stake your crypto so you can get some returns. You get interest on your cash, a little bit of interest. You can get dividends on your shares, and you get rental income from your properties. And at some point, you're generating passive income. Make money while you sleep. And over time, that can eventually cover your living expenses. And that's when you break out of the rat race, as Robert Kiyosaki would say, you achieve financial independence, right? Which is great. The only problem is that doesn't work. All right. So what does work is income minus profit equals expenses. So it's about direct debiting money out, skimming. And we have people that go, but I don't have much money now. Like I'm just paying my bills, if that. And I don't care. $20 a week. Just set up a direct debit into a cash account. In fact, if you can afford $150, I go 50 into a cash account, 50 into a micro investing index fund, top 100, whatever companies, and then 50 into crypto. There's apps where you can buy, the $50 gets split between Bitcoin, Ethereum, and gold. Okay. And then set and forget. So it's direct debit. It's happening, automated. Put a note in your calendar 6 months from now, and then don't look at them over the 6 months until that date, and then have a look and see what interest you got, dividends, you got, and then what happened to the crypto and the gold. And then you'll be able to look back and go, oh, well, Trump said this, and then that went up and that went down, or this war broke out, or whatever. That's how you're gonna learn. But you just automated it's dollar cost averaging. Okay, you're not trying to play the market. And the returns, when you buy a little and the market goes up and you buy and it goes down and you buy like that. On a roll, you essentially become like the bank. I think there's a 96% chance you're going to get a positive return. I've been doing this for years now, and you always make money. You make money on it. It's just the amount that varies. So that's my recommendation there. And then you increase those amounts. Eventually, as when I work with my clients and as you work with yours, you're helping them increase that net profit. So they're stacking more and more cash. Eventually, 20-30% of the revenues getting stacked away into, and it has to be in a separate account that you don't look at. As human beings, we can't see the money without our brain starting to spend it. So just hard it. And you can gamify it as well. But eventually what happens is, especially as you approach a 7-figure club, the money that's left after you stacking cash is still substantial. And your business is a money eating machine, right? It's just going to keep consuming. So if you're stacking it first and it's automated and you're not seeing it, and look, a good way to start is 2% of each progress payment and then get it up, up, up. And then, so you're building buffers, almost like your own overdraft, but that money starts self-perpetuating, I've had like 23 of these accounts at one point, and the confidence you get from that, going back to mindset, is like, that because it's not a matter of if, it's when. Something's going to happen. Like you either a toxic client's going to slip through, someone's going to try to sue you, you're going to have some unforeseen thing, some black swan event, and personally, it's definitely going to happen. Someone's going to get sick or worse. And I've had it happen. I've had it happen to a family member, like a sibling. And then, they were in dire straits, but I was able to throw, 30 or 40,000 at them without breaking stride or blinking, or for it to start impacting me, which made me feel good as well. So yeah, profit first, massive. So, and then channel it into all those areas. But as you get to the seven-figure club, to answer your question, real estate is the thing. So our goal with our clients, again, the outcome objective is optimization with profit, cash flow, workflow. Those are the three metrics that we move the needle on the most. And the principle that we follow, by the way, is the 80-20, which I know you're familiar with as well. Pareto principle, 20% of the things you do give you 80% of the results, right? So we know what those 20% are, get those better down. Most people don't realize there's a further extrapolation where there's a 20% of the 20%, which gives you a 464. So there's 4% of the things you do give you 64% of your results. And those are those critical distinctions, those hinges that really, it's charging for quotes, value management, eliminating the tender process, all that sort of thing, which we won't get into now. But so profit we've spoken about. Cash flow, you've got to have money. Money's got to come in before it goes out. You cannot finance your jobs. And that's another issue where, sometimes the banks don't like it and they push back. But having a payment schedule that's legal but cash flow positive ticks that box. But now what about the workflow? How do you guarantee, and by the way, like in business, and you'd know this as well, like risk mitigation, right, is key. So all of this, like marketing is risk mitigation. We overbook the flight, like the airlines, get more in the pipeline than you could service, pick and choose, prioritize, put people in a holding pattern, but you want that sushi train of work. But even if you do that exceptionally well, there will come a time where at the 11th hour, someone signed a contract, job starting in 2 weeks, they get sick, they lose their job, they go through a divorce or worse. Right? So that's happened to everyone. So what do you do in that situation? Well, if you're land banking, if you've got some properties, maybe you've got a fixer upper, or you've got you're going to build a specky, you've got a set of plans. You just start one of your own projects. And that keeps your crew nice and busy, and everything's fine. And I highly recommend that you do it in a controlled way. Don't overextend yourself. And this is why profit first is great, because you're building up buffers. And then at some point, like, if you're starting with some cash and some crypto and some shares, there may be an opportunity present itself where you could buy some real estate because the market just is ripe and ready. Then, you may empty out those accounts to purchase something, but because they're all on direct debit, they just replenish. And then while you work on the property, but property is the main area. And we've run full training workshops to make sure that they because you've got to structure things in a way through creative accounting to make sure that you still want to pay tax for serviceability, but be able to offset the cost to build on any of those properties through the business. So there's a way to do that, but that is the best business model I've seen, is a consistent flow of quality, high margin client work with a development arm, if you like, a real estate arm. And then some of our guys, just to wrap this one up, when they come to us, they go, okay, seven-figure club, let's have a crack. And then they build in their operations manual for the client work. And then they'll put a young 32-year-old guy in there once it's completed to run the business, doing it through profit share or giving him a 25% share in the business, which you could buy through salary sacrifice or whatever else, putting some money in. And then they just focus on the development on and tinker with that and do that into their twilight years, as opposed to retiring, which is just like, it must be torture. It's torturous. I know for most entrepreneurs, like just an outdated concept, right?
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. I love how you laid that all out, and the profit first system, definitely the beauty of it is that it is so simple but yet so extremely effective. And essentially you're going to have a couple of different bank accounts, and you're making sure that, as you mentioned, any money that comes into the business, there's a percentage that's going directly into a profit account somewhere, ideally somewhere where you can't touch it or see it too well. And then that profit is being rolled into some sort of investments, whether that's, crypto or stocks and real estate and things like that. And you get that wonderful compound interest and compound, wealth working for
Absolutely.
you. Definitely. I think it
Yeah.
was what's the investor Warren Buffett who said if you can't make money while you sleep, you'll never become wealthy. And it's very
Yeah.
very true in that regard. I
Yeah.
made this
He's a
mistake
great
when
example.
yeah,
Yeah.
I made
Sorry.
this mistake when I was early on too, was like I'll just grow my business, right? Like I'll go from a
Yeah.
million to 5 million or 10 million, and then I'll be rich and wealthy. But it really starts like you need to get your money and your mindset right when you're smaller in order to reach those higher levels without kind of crashing and burning, which can definitely
Mm.
happen when your business outgrows you to some extent or your leadership abilities. You've
Yeah.
mentioned like best practices or best processes a couple of times. What do you see like besides what you've mentioned already? What are some kind of key systems or processes or ideas that contractors should be implementing in their business so that it's efficient and they're not having to do everything themselves?
Absolutely, yeah. We haven't got time to go through all of them. There's actually a chapter in my book, in Million Dollar Builder 2.0, that goes through the 20% of strategies that give you 80% of your results. And it
Mhm.
is chapter 4, 80/20 systems focus. So it's all
Yep.
in there. But I'll touch on them in a sec. I mentioned obviously the numbers come first. They're absolutely crucial.
Mhm.
Just with the profit first, it's important for guys to know that they need to have provisional tax accounts set up if they don't already. So they should be taking a percentage of every progress payment and putting aside. Hopefully, everyone's going, yeah, of course we do that. But some people need to do that first. So all the profit first that we were talking about is over and above a provisional tax account, which is a form of profit first in as well. And then important to invest outside the business. So in terms of best practice processes, so again, yeah, it's at 20%. And then within that 20%, because yeah, most guys that come to us, they struggling with time. Time's a big thing. Often on that proverbial hamster wheel, doing 60 to 80 hours a week. So we need to put some things in place, some processes in place quickly and well to free up time and money. So the biggest inefficiency in this industry is the pre-construction phase or sales process. We've
Mhm.
got guys that, their sales process, and anyone listening to this, like ask yourself, what is your process? Do you have a consistent process that you take people through when they contact you? So I'm assuming people email or phone your business and inquire about doing whatever it is. Hopefully, you're not a Me Too builder, no job too big, too small. Maybe, hopefully, you do have some sort of specialty. And then, yeah, the question is, so what is your process? Do you, ask them some questions, book in a time to go meet with them? Because we've had guys do that. And then the question with that is, what percentage of the people you meet with when you go to site, do you go, oh my God, I'm never going to work with these guys? But you spend the time anyway out of politeness because you're going to leave, and maybe it's a lovely old lady who, you spend the 45 minutes or an hour and you justify that time by saying, well, at least I didn't damage my brand. I don't want to be rude to people. And then they say, well, that guy, don't work with them, sort of thing. But much better process. And we've got a well-defined six-step sales process where step one is a questionnaire. It's a 2-minute conversation. Thank you for making contact. And usually get someone in the office to do this. In order for us to help you best, we need as much information as possible. You need to understand scope of works. What do they want to build? Have they built before? What's their budget? All that sort of thing. We're going to send you some questions. Please answer them as best you can. And once you've done that, we will give us as much as you can. We'll give it to our specialist builder who will absorb it all, and then he will call you to have a meaningful conversation about your project. Now, that does two things, like someone who's a quality prospect, because let's face it, once you start marketing, there's going to be a percentage of tire kickers, right? People that are price checking, or deer thieves, whatever else. That first step right there, that's a critical distinction. So let's look at someone who is a quality prospect, someone who genuinely, needs some help with a renovation. Then maybe they're not sure, should we knock down, rebuild, or renovate? What's it going to cost? Sure, they've got all these thoughts and ideas, and they want to bounce it off a specialist who can give them some real answers. What are they going to think of that first interaction and the questionnaire being sent? They go, wow, so this guy sat down and thought of the best questions to ask me to better help me. All right. Plus, are we talking now on a Friday? It's nearly lunchtime where I am. If they're busy professionals, they probably don't have 45 minutes to go through a questionnaire on the phone with you right there and then. 9 o'clock tonight, when their kids are in bed, they can go through and they can shoot everything across. Plus, then the builder will. So their first impression, and you only have one chance at a first impression, is that you're professional, organized, process-driven magic. Okay, and it's quick and easy. So it's a license to turn the taps on with your marketing as well. On the flip side, a tire kicker coming at you, they've already got their builder, their brother-in-law's building the house. They just want a price check. Those are people that are like, hey, I'm around the corner, just come over this afternoon. By the way, I'm all cash. They're going to say things to you to get you there. And then, after you've met with them, you don't hear from them again and they ghost you, right? So when you send them a question, you'll sense the agitation. So that process is repulsive to them. But again, the best possible first impression to quality prospect. And then the next step is not to go out and see them. It's a audition, we call it an audition call like this, where you spend and try and cover as much as you would on site on a Zoom, FaceTime call, even on the phone, just getting a real good understanding of the scope of works, what they want to do, when they want to do it, how much money they have, and them as well. Because remember, there's the job type, but there's also the client persona. So and if that goes well, and if you feel it's worthwhile, then you book a site visit. And then in the lead up to the site visit, you send them information. And this is critical. There's two bits that we send. There's the frequently asked questions document that explains the importance of getting the numbers right. Okay, so there's a lot of price shock at the moment off the back of the pandemic. There's always been price shock, but it's typically worse now. So demonstrating that you have a process for accuracy. There's a difference between an estimate and a quote, and just unpacking the complexity. We've got a 12-page document there. And then second to that is a capability statement or a hard copy brochure that gets sent in the mail that communicates, your specialty and point of difference. And then an agenda the day before the site visit, just an email reconfirming 2:00 tomorrow. By the way, here's the agenda. Here's what we're going to cover off. Turn up at a text message an hour before the appointment. Everyone's had a no-show before. So make sure that doesn't happen. And then turn up on time, presentable with a run sheet and agenda that you lead them through, and having a fit-for-purpose prelim agreement solution that best serves their needs based on the questionnaire and the conversation. And then that gets presented, and they're either going to convert on that, or at that point they get ejected from the process. So I don't know if anyone listening, just wash that up against what you do. And if you've got that consistent process, you come across really well, you convert the best clients. So there's an example. That's a process. That's a system. So systems isn't just your job scheduling tool, your financial controls. It's the you're talking about go high level. It's your CRM system. It's your marketing lead tracking process to better understand where your best clients coming from and what channels you should invest your marketing spending, that sort of thing. But that's one example that is what we'd call or consider a game changer, that sales process.
Wonderful. Thanks for clarifying that whole process and what you've seen work effectively. That is, as you've mentioned, kind of one of the key links in the business is you've generated a lead no matter where it comes from. It should feel just like walk in the park, if you will, or a conveyor belt where they always know and you're leading the way, and it just feels like a natural next step. And you're always telling them, what's the next thing to do? Fill out the form. And then what's the next thing after that? We will, review it and contact you. And they always feel like they're never left hanging. And it's just a natural process, and it's a normal thing that you do every day with every client. And that's how you can really lead someone through that whole lead, like that initial lead, but then into some sort of pre-construction prelim agreement. And by the time you've demonstrated how professional you are and you've worked with them and they're clear on the budget and everything, the construction contract then becomes a much easier hurdle to pass with that client, because they've already been working with you and you've demonstrated your professionalism with them at that point.
You just hit on something there that's absolutely pivotal, because yes, it's an education-based sales process, educating them on how you can most help them. You're a solution provider, you're not trying to sell, but you said lead them through. So you said that quite casually as if everyone does it. From my experience, most guys don't lead anyone through a process. And if I had to sum up sales, again, dirty word for a lot of people, in a word, it's leadership. So most builders, not most, a percentage are sort of people pleasing. Maybe it's in their defense, in the builder's defense, like they have clients with $1 million, $2 million. Like, they can hand that money to any of their competitors, and so the builder really wants to put their best foot forward and try and please the client. But what that does is, the client's like feeling like they need to lead what's going to happen. Really, the builder needs to just see themselves as a solution provider, add as much value, right? First principles of wealth creation is value adding. So they need to, again, be a specialist and then lead that client through those steps. And if the client tries to push back or if there's any challenges around that, they don't want to acquiesce to your process. And this really is. It's about running business on your terms and people coming through your process, not theirs. Because people have a process for how they select a builder, right? They'll jump online, look at 10, speak to 5, meet with 3, get 3 quotes, pick 1, right? Your process needs to be better than that. And you need to unashamedly follow your process as a builder, knowing that it's engineered to give your client the best possible result and outcome. So if they don't want to follow it, a bit like if you're a specialist cardiologist prescribing a solution for your client because you care and they go, look, no, that's not pushing back. Well, then they're not going to work with you, right? So yeah, but it comes back to having these processes in place. So leadership is crucial. And so anyone listening, also, are you leading people through? Okay, and if you're not, you got to fix that. But while we're talking, or now that we've touched on leadership, what I found just recently, just yesterday, I had 2 builders I spoke to. Their wives were on the call, right? And the woman were leading the conversation around business development. And I'm seeing more and more of that. I don't know if you are, Derek, but if any women are listening, man, like we ran our first woman in construction event. And when I say woman in construction, there's women that build, but there's also women who are wives of builders. And there are women who work in a building company in an admin role or whatever else. Some of them are on site, but there's more and more of that happening. But women read the play differently. They bring a different skill set. It's mainly around empathy, their ability to communicate. They're more nurturing. I'm just stereotyping now, guys tend to be more one-dimensional, get things done. But there's a lot of women out there, especially when we had this event, where they can see what their husbands need to do. But they're too stubborn and pig-headed, the husbands, to change and to seek help or get advice. And then again, the family's suffering financially where they don't have to. They can just make some changes. So if there's any woman out there that hear this, like, you need to rise up. You need to step up. You don't need to lead the business, but maybe you need to lead the business development. And you can do it. You can put some changes in place, whether it's sales process, the marketing, the financials, and then let your husband lead the team on site if that's what he wants to do. But you can play a role in, taking the business to a positive transformation.
Yeah, definitely. I've worked with some, husband-wife teams, partners, and it makes the business a lot easier. They both have their specialties and dynamics, and they're able to kind of each have their role, and the business is much stronger because of it, definitely. Can you walk us through like a case study or like a client that you've worked with, where they started, some of the challenges they're having, why they were seeking help, and the roadmap that you guys put into place? And where they, the results were for them?
Absolutely. I'll give you a couple, so just so we can sort of cater for more people. So there's a few sort of husband and wife team examples where there's one couple in particular, the wife sort of ex-corporate, are very articulate, well-spoken. The guy's very blue collar, more sort of build type. And she sort of run the office and was able to lead with the business development and implement changes from a marketing and sales perspective. And then he was sort of managing the guys on site. He was able to put supervisors on and step back into more of a project management role. So he was more sort of overseeing them, but together they were able to increase the volume of work and the margins and then get the marketing working so that they had a consistent flow of leads. So great husband and wife team with the two, them both, recognizing their unique abilities and then merging them. But she was leading the business development side. And then to give you some other examples, where I had a guy sort of in his mid to late 50s, he almost got wiped out just with a real estate syndicate deal where the market turned suddenly and went bad. And he was looking at how much runway he had left in his career, and he's like, he was almost resigned to the fact that maybe it's too late. But this $1 million club or 7-figure club is achievable within 3 years at a walk, right? If you're going to implement things properly and in the right sequence of best practice and guidance. And he was able to do that. It took him probably 5 or 6 years, but he's just turned 60 now. He's in the 7-figure club. He's got 2 of his supervisors who are buying the business off him. So he's making a chunk of change there. And obviously you would imagine, it's worthy of that, because that 7-figure or $1 million net profit result. It's not a one-off thing. You don't want to have a year we make $1 million. Oh my God, great. Next year it all slips back down. It needs to be sustainable. You want to replicate that result for the next 10 years. So those structures have been put in place. Plus, he's got a development arm. He's able to purchase real estate. He's a great example of older guys. If any older guys there, it's not too late. Even if you're 60 years old, you can do a lot between now and when you're 65, and 60 is the new 50. So he's a great example. And he's like a, as you can imagine, like a raving fan. He's just very grateful. And no, I'll just help guide him as you do, but they still have to do the work, and he has to get through all the mindset stuff. So he gets all the credit. And then there's a young guy who came to me, who was doing about $500,000 turnover. So, I said between 2 and 10, this guy's doing $500,000, him and an apprentice. And then he was able to get himself up quite quickly. He was really good with building a team. He's a strong leader, just natural leadership ability, even though he was in his late 20s. By the time he was 32 in the seven-figure club. But the way that he got there quickly was through his office admin lady. So he employed this woman named Sam, and she was just phenomenal. So when I work with my builders, as I'm sure when you work with yours, there's homework that gets set. So we break it down and drip feed the right information in the right sequence, and then share examples and templates to help them easily, one, understand, and two, use them. And then we work on like a 12-week plan, and then reflect and review every 12 weeks, lay the track for the next one. So there's 4 of those in a calendar year. And Sam was implementing these things. So she was building the operations manual, spending 20, 30 hours a week sometimes with implementation. So that just accelerated results. And then he was building Dream Team as well. And then, like enjoying the process, having a lot of fun. So there's some husband and wife team, older guy without his wife involved, and then a younger guy also without his wife, but with female leadership in the office, just as an employee.
Yeah. Wonderful. It's great to see those successes, and really, shows what can be accomplished if you put your mind to it, follow, a proven track, and can stick with it, and look at the long view of, 3 to 5 years as you grow older. It doesn't seem, as long when you're starting out. Seems like a long time, but definitely very much achievable with the right mindsets and frameworks in place and things like that. So fantastic to see that. So we're going to put a link to the Builders Coach website in the description of this video or audio. What's the best way for people to reach out to you, Kurt, and learn more about the Builders Coach and the work that you do?
Builderscoach.com. So builder with an S, builderscoach.com. Just go to the contact us and get in touch with me that way. If anyone's wondering, how they get started on their business development journey, highly recommend grab a copy of this. I put my heart and soul into it. It took me 2 years, but everything's in there. There's a lot of resources. And I'll just finish up by saying that you don't need to understand how to do these things. Right, like the most powerful thing you can do is seek out the right advice. There's a great book called Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. It's not about, how do I get this thing done? There may be guys, maybe older guys, they're not involved with social media, Instagram or hows, whatever it is. You don't need to know how to do it. You need to know who already does it exceptionally well, who could help set it up, and you could outsource it to them. That's how we get significant results quickly. It's really about seeking out the right people, and that's another whole conversation in itself.
Yeah, definitely. Great advice. As you mentioned with some of your success stories there's always a team involved, and having that leadership ability to find the right people, get them all, pointing in the right direction, and really allow them the space to excel is a big factor as well to success. So thanks so much for coming on here, Kurt, sharing your wisdom and helping create some more, $1 million builders out there. So appreciate you coming on today.
You're welcome. Thanks, Derek. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.